we could just roll into this. I know we're talking about the podcast. We could probably. I know we want to talk newsletters. We can talk podcast too.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing the podcast?
I've been doing the podcast. It's been 5 years now. So since March of 2020. So I was a pandemic podcaster. What about you?
Yeah, almost 7.5 years. I launched my first episode at the end of November 2017.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
from I think this week I launched episode 457.
That's insane. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ. I'm
yeah.
still in the like 100s, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with. But yeah.
Well, but it's interesting because like people always ask like, "Oh, how do you keep it going?" And my big thing is always, and this kind of goes to like the newsletter stuff even, like it's just one at a time. That's all
Yeah.
I think about is like the next one
Yeah.
and the next one. I don't think about like, "Oh my God, in 5 years I could have whatever number of," doesn't matter. I can't think that far. I only can think the next week or the next episode, next interview. And I think if people kept that mentality, it just makes it super easy,
Yeah.
right? You don't overwhelm yourself. So,
No, I can agree with that for sure. Especially with the newsletter. People are like, how do you do it? I'm like, deadlines. I know Monday and Thursday, sometimes Saturday, I need to have something out. And I just focus on those days one step at a time. Then after a while, you look back and you're like, oh, okay, hundreds of things later, we're good.
yeah, so let's talk about the newsletter a little bit because I know that's, as we caught up before, obviously that's something we're both into. And
Yeah.
you're a little further ahead. How many years you been doing the newsletter now?
Not very long. I started my first one December 2023.
Okay.
So it's been about a year and a half on that one.
Yeah, so I'm about 3 months in, I guess 4 months now. So like 19 issues or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit, behind your pace. What, let me ask you this on the content piece. Do you have a set schedule? Like, how do you stay consistent putting yours out? What's the process?
Yeah. So for Please Hustle Responsibly, which is the companion newsletter to Honey and Hustle, we put out, I say we, it's me. I put it out Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And then I started maybe about 6 months, 6 to 8 months in. I was like, okay, I want to add a paid one that goes out on Saturday. But recently I blew that up and I was like, screw paid. It's all free. If I want you to pay for something, I'm going to make it a paid product.
Yeah.
And so Saturdays is kind of like if I have something to say on a Saturday, then I'll post it. So that will get me to 3 times a week. But bare minimum, Mondays and Thursdays are my cadence.
And the was it Hustle and Honey you said?
Honey and Hustle. Yeah.
Okay. Honey and Hustle. Do you send that out consistently as well?
Not anymore. So it's always been a seasonal show.
Okay.
So right now we're prepping for the next season. And we've been recording some stuff for that, but also doing some pre-production for the other episodes. So we haven't really been putting out consistently since February.
So when you think about like, is your process, I'm going to write a newsletter issue and I'm going to sit down and do it in one full swoop? Or do you kind of ideate and then go and edit and then create it? Like, what's your process there?
Oh, that's a good question. So I didn't really have much of a process when I first started. It was just I know I need to put something out.
Yeah.
I think now it's much more streamlined. I have a Notion calendar where I kind of keep ideas, like relative ideas, and I try to plan ahead. Like, what can I match? What articles can I match with what moments? So, for example, this past week I wrote about Ryan Coogler because Sinners just came out and I've been wanting to write about Ryan Coogler anyway. So it's just like, okay, here's someone I want to do a deep dive on. Here's a cultural moment that I can attach it to. Like, how do we make stuff like that happen? So it feels on trend or like timely, but it still feels evergreen as well. Like someone can still read this in 6 months and I would still be proud of that piece.
Mhm.
Um, and for stuff like that requires a lot of research, like when I'm doing deep dives. So it can't just be like, okay, this is going on Monday. I'm going to start on Sunday. It just doesn't. It would not get done. It would just take all day. So some stuff, like especially if I have it in the hopper, like it's an idea I know I want to talk about at some point. As I come across things and like articles and things I think I want to include, I'll put them in a Notion doc, and then when it's time, I'll be like, okay, I have my research, I have my idea. Let me create an outline, and then let me start writing. So that's typically the process right now, and that's been working pretty well.
Let me go back. I'm gonna put a pin in that for a second because I should have asked you the question before. Is why don't you share what your newsletters about, and
Yeah.
maybe what type of content, because maybe that'll help us kind of go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's probably helpful because I get this too. People are like, oh, you have a newsletter for your podcast, or are you just sharing podcast episodes in your newsletter? And for me, that answer is no. Do we share podcast episodes? Yes, absolutely. Do we only share podcast episodes? No. Um, Please also responsibly to me is an extension of like maybe my expertise as a podcast host. Like, it maybe lends itself to helping people understand why I am a person who is interested in talking directly with creators and business owners in North Carolina about their businesses and about their lifestyles that they've created through their businesses and how they work with their community to create a positive impact. Like a lot of the stuff that we talk about is breaking down creator economy news. Yes, like what does that mean for the everyday creator? Whether you're, a side hustler part time or you're a full time creator, you're an in house creator, and then also like the business side of things. So writing more editorial style content on creator businesses and minority owned businesses. So that's kind of the basis of the newsletter. So Ryan Coogler, as you can see, is a creator, business owner, Proximity Media, and he's, I mean, an acclaimed filmmaker. What else can I say? He's someone that a lot of people are familiar with. A lot of people would probably want to emulate. So how can we bring that down to the everyday creator? Like, what can you learn from this person that's going to be relevant?
Mm,
So that's kind of my approach to the newsletter. In addition to sharing my own experiences as a creative business owner, but
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And are those so on your 3 times a week, I guess at least 2 times a week, Monday, Thursday, maybe a Saturday, is it similar content, or is there some expectation that you give your audience that, hey, on Mondays it's going to be this, Thursday it's going to be this?
They are just in for the roller coaster of a ride. I don't say anything about, like, any type of expectation. Sometimes I'll preview things. I'll be like, "PS, stick around for next week," or "Stick around for Thursday. I'm gonna write about XYZ." So kinda give them a preview of what's to come, but, in terms of the type, I only write about creator economy news on Thursday, or I only share the podcast on Mondays. It just doesn't go like that. It's a little more organic than that.
Gotcha. So, and now you're using Beehive, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So, what's your process of, again, talking about this ideation? Because I think this is so important to your point earlier. Like, you can't just scramble and do this. I'm sure some people do it that way, but I've even found like I got to get structured. I try to be a couple weeks in ahead, like to batch these. Cause if I was like the week of, or this is due tomorrow, yeah, it'd be like you're cramming for a test, which, I did successfully, I guess, to get through college, but I don't know if that'd be good for the newsletter. But anyways, how do you think about like taking it from, I guess, Notion it's written in, and then do you do any critique in Beehive, additional customization or anything, or do you just have a same template you use all the time?
So for Please Hustle Responsibly, I do want to clarify, I also have two newsletters. So for Please Hustle Responsibly, I have three main templates that I kind of rotate between um, for like things that I'm writing. I just recently created a guest post template because I had my first guest post. So that was really exciting and fun. And then I've had a couple of templates that I've created for like just timely things that I want to promote. And typically my templates just have rotating calls to action or a section dedicated to, an ad if I have an ad in my newsletter. Um, and so that's been working really well, just having rotating calls to action within the templates and just having some really what I like to think is cute design language that helps with the pacing of the newsletter, helps with the readability, and just helps with brand recognition. When people are reading, they're like, okay, I recognize this format. I like it. It's easy to scroll. I understand what's happening. I understand there's going to be little nuggets in there. So just chances for me to surprise and delight readers is really cool. I also created a template for my audio newsletters. Every once in a while, I'll record myself reading something that I've written if it's a little on the longer side, because I send in the morning. So I guess my thought process was, okay, if I write something that's longer than, let's say, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, right? Somebody probably is going to see that reading time and they're going to be like, yeah, I'll check this later. But if there's an audio version of it, they may say, well, I'm commuting to work. Let me just turn on, the episode and I'll just listen to it and they'll get the same information. So, and they can always check back to the actual article itself if they want to click any of the hyperlinks to learn more or anything like that. So, kind of a win win. And I've been enjoying that. My audience has been enjoying that from what I can tell. So, those are kind of the ones that I rotate between. On Melanin MVP, which is a more women's sports newsletter, I have a couple different ones that I rotate on for that. So I have a podcast with that. I have like a podcast kind of template. I have a guest post template for that. Um, have a regular template when I'm just writing a solo situation. Um, and then I have, I think, one more template for that as well if I'm tackling like current women's sports headlines and things like that. So I think having a couple rotating templates where your design language is really like nailed and dialed and really fitting, it helps the readability. I think that's a good way to go, and that's been working for me pretty well.
So the rotating ads are really just to keep it fresh. You're
Yeah,
not getting the same every time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of I'm at that point now where I'm thinking, like I said, about I guess 19 or 20 editions in. And although the format I think is really clean, I've gotten some good feedback. I try to keep it super simple. And I'm talking about sales, a lot of so it's a little different than more editorial type. Like, there might be different graphics or, I'm splitting sections up or what have you. I've tried to think about like how do I maybe incorporate some new designs or new things in here to I like the idea of the delight people because I think people do get stagnant of the same thing.
yeah. I also think newsletters are just boring, and I feel like there are easy ways to, like, wake people up a little bit and be like, "Oh, okay, this isn't just something that's trying to sell me something, it's trying to teach me something, it's trying to entertain me, it's trying to make it fun, it's trying to make it conversational," and, for me, at least that's what I think about. Because honestly, I subscribe to a lot of newsletters, I've unsubscribed to a lot of newsletters, I've read some great ones, there are probably only a few that I make dedicated time to read each week, and I try to think about what is gonna make someone on my email list make this one of their newsletters that they have to read each week, you know?
What are those couple? You want to call them out?
James Clear, the 321 newsletter, I know it's cliche, but some of his questions are just, man, they just biting, just straight to the soul. They're just so good.
Yep.
Um, the Published Press by Colin and Samir, um, love their newsletter. Um, Ironically, I've been reading this newsletter called Laid Off, and it's people sharing their experiences being laid off. But it's like, I don't know, just the way she's able to get people to have really vulnerable conversations after something that is arguably not a great experience is really, really interesting.
Hmm.
And so maybe I'm just fascinated with this like phenomenon of like people talking about a really probably one of the hardest days you'll ever go through in your professional career, especially a lot of the journalists that I've been on lately. Um, Journalists Pay Themselves, also a great newsletter by Lex Roman. I've really been enjoying that. I'm not a journalist, but I just appreciate their approach to talking about getting paid for your writing and bringing journalistic rigor to kind of creator led newsletters. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And the last one is probably The Case, and um, it's on Substack, and it's basically like the writer she breaks down like basically like the case for brand and like how brand is so integral to like an organization or a company's success. And she breaks down different brands. Like I recently read her big one on Tracksmith. That was really good. She just writes really incredible stuff. I love like really well researched, nerdy, factual, entertaining stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been reading lately.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like James Clear. I love when that shows up in my inbox. That's a good one. It is because it's so short. It's probably why I love reading Seth Godin's blog,
I
and
tried his.
it comes every day. But what I do like is it's short writing.
Yeah.
So, and now I don't read everyone. Um, I'll do, well, that's a whole nother conversation. I won't even get on actual productivity, but, but yeah. So, anyways, like a Seth Godin is something he has some interesting ways of thinking about things, which I enjoy. So,
One of my favorite things about both Seth Godin and James Clear's newsletters is they're arguably very short, but they have probably written more words than either of us combined will ever write in a lifetime on some level. Like Seth Godin's written so many books over his career. It's almost comical how short his day. It's almost like he's letting us into his daily writing habit a little bit, because it's like and he'll even admit to this. He'll be like, "Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just whatever I have to say that day is what you're gonna get."
yeah,
But then James Clear, I think when I was doing a deep dive on his newsletter, his is written almost not like mine, but like it was written long form. It wasn't always this short, kind of like, you know, 3 ideas, 2 quotes, 1 question. It was like this long form thing. And it just reminds me like, yeah, maybe someday I'll get to this highly tactical, short form newsletter. But in terms of audience acquisition and audience loyalty, like the long form is what gets people to like understand your voice and your personality and to really come to grow affinity for you as a writer. So,
Yeah. I think it is finding what's best for you. What's funny is, and I don't even call it a newsletter, I call it a blog, and maybe they're one and the same. But like I did for, gosh, I probably wrote 500 of them 3 times a week for the last 4 years. Now I've hit a pause the last 3 months, almost 4 months, purely because of like, okay, I'm going to take a pause. I've been writing this for 4 years and what have you. But it was sort of, I'll call it Seth Godin-esque, like short form, you can read in probably under 2 minutes, that type of approach. And I had a small group of people that were on that list. Um, but like I said, when I said, all right, I'm going to do a newsletter, really the sales stuff, just because I'm doing a lot of sales coaching, like that seemed more just the tactical side. And the writing is kind of like, I'll keep doing the blog, but like those are like for LinkedIn posts and other stuff like that. I kind of just like, that's my personal, almost my personal journal I share with the world, that I'll turn into a book at some point. But so I think what we're kind of circling around is just do it how you want to do it.
yeah.
Like, don't follow a script because Seth does it this way. I have to do it this way. It's like, what do you feel compelled? And I think you've probably done this through your, what you said, almost, year and a half or so. And at least what I found out is you're going to have some people that like it and some people that don't.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Like, you're not going to have everyone like you. So just keep writing to the people that do and write what's in your heart. And ultimately, you'll find your audience and your path.
Yeah. Honestly, something that I think it's interesting. I feel like it's sometimes one of the first questions people ask me is about like churn, like how much, churn do I have per, send or per month or whatever. And I'm like, dude, it's like less than 1%. It's not even something I think about. Like, it's not something that hurts my feelings. It's not something that keeps me up at night. Like, the growth has been pretty steady. As long as you're consistent, I feel like it's been pretty steady for me. So it's not even something that like I think about, and the people that are leaving, they're like weeding themselves out. They're not helping your open rates. They're not clicking. They
Yeah.
don't care, so like they might as well leave.
Exactly. You might as well have them out. If they're not the right people, they're not the right audience, who cares if you have a few unsubscribe? Let's get the right people in the room.
Yeah.
How do you, going to growth, like to give me an idea of where you're at right now, subscriber
Well, I
count?
think when I last looked, we were one away from 1,200 on Please Hustle Responsibly, and we're at about like 170 on Melanin MVP. But
Okay.
Melanin MVP is the baby, so we're still learning how to grow and market that one.
How did you start with a list with Please Hustle Responsibly, or was that like zero?
They're both started from scratch. Yeah.
So what do you think's been the biggest growth engine to get new subscribers?
I would say I'm about so I also need to caveat, I started both Please Also I started Melanin MVP on Substack. So, I did have a few recommendations on that platform before I moved to Beehive. So, recommendations both on Substack and Beehive play a role for me. LinkedIn for acquisition plays a role for me, especially with Please Also Responsibly. Threads plays a big role for me with Melanin MVP. There's just a big women's sports community on there. Um, and then the last of it is probably just like events, networking, podcast guesting. Is probably that last 1/3 of our new subscriber acquisition.
How much are you like when you're on LinkedIn? How of like, let's say, I don't know how often you're posting now. Is it once a day or a couple times a day, a couple
I
times?
used to be daily. I was daily for like almost 4 years
Okay.
on LinkedIn, but I've been kind of like leaning off of that. I'm like, okay, like I think it's time to lean more into like our long form channels, the podcast, the newsletter, YouTube type deal.
When you're posting on LinkedIn, then are you like every other post you're recommending the newsletter, or is it just kind of you're hoping people click the link in your profile to get there? Like, how do you? I don't even know if you can. I guess you can maybe tag those links, but
So whenever I schedule posts that 9 times out of 10 are relevant. I have, like, on my scheduler, it allows me to add a first comment when I'm scheduling a post, and I just say something along the lines of, "If you enjoy this post, check out you'll love my newsletter, read and subscribe here," and I'll leave a link. And that's done numbers. DMs, jumping into people's DMs on LinkedIn, that's done really well.
Mm.
Um People who engage frequently, people who are in a similar industry, they respond pretty well, both to Melanin MVP and Please Hustle Responsibly. If there is a way for me to automate it, which I'm sure there is by now, it's 2025 and AI is taking over our lives. I'm sure there's a way for me to automate outreach via LinkedIn DMs, and that's something I might look into. I think that would, to me, be worth the paid acquisition, I think.
Yeah, the only thing gotta be careful of from what I've understood with LinkedIn is they are cracking down big time on tools that are tapping into their API.
They freaking hate creators. It's the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing to me. Like LinkedIn, honestly, when you think about it, it is one of the few like more established social media brands. So not counting Threads, not counting Blue Sky, not counting Mastodon, things like that, that is relatively unscathed in terms of like reputation. Like the CEO of LinkedIn isn't on a podcast every other week, right? So people, they either use it to get jobs or they're using it as a creator. They're, writing every day. They're trying to build a personal brand on LinkedIn. And I just don't understand. Like, it's almost like they want people to use LinkedIn more, but then they don't actually want to give them the tools that they need to use it successfully, like, as a social platform. It's very strange. I don't like it, but
Well,
I use it.
the devil's advocate, I guess, side of it is because there's at least what I see, there's so many bots on there. There's so many AI comments. There are a lot of people that are, automating in the DMs. And that I guess that puts a, whatever, I guess a black eye on the brand of LinkedIn. That could be the only reason that I think that if they can tap that out or tap that down and let people create on the platform. Like they should build in. I mean, obviously you can use the scheduler there. It's okay. It's not horrible, but it's okay. It's better than it was. That's at least helpful. They have to do something about the DMs and the whole messaging platform. Just
I'll be honest.
yeah,
So the other maybe counterpart to this, and this is just my opinion, a lot of the spammy DMs I get are for people who subscribe to LinkedIn whatever mail. So they're paying for like LinkedIn Premium to be
right.
able to send you in mail if they're not connected to you. So that's one thing. I don't like that, but they're paying for it. They have a right to send me that. It's at the end of the day, I think it's fine. Um, and in terms of people using AI comments, that is something that LinkedIn is promoting. They're making it easy for you to click on AI suggested responses to your post and move on about your day. And I've gotten a couple of them. Do they suck? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's not a bot. It's a person who's choosing to engage with me this way, which is, disingenuine. It's not thoughtful. It's not gaining them anything because I don't want anything to do with them if I feel like they haven't actually read the post and said something meaningful.
Yeah.
So, again, I think the way that LinkedIn is trying to integrate AI and automation into their platform and, encourage people to pay for premium subscriptions, whether that's, they're a job seeker or
Oh,
they're, a hiring manager or whatever the case may be. All the reasons people use their different premium products. They aren't really meant for creators. And if LinkedIn, again, like to your point, they added a scheduler, it's trash compared to what's out there. Great for them, but really behind the curve, if we're being honest. If they want to create a premium, LinkedIn premium for creators, they're like 3 years too late, 5 years too late, 7 years too late, if we're being honest. And I just don't see them headed in the right direction in terms of restricting the tools that are actively trying to give creators the tools to use the platform the way that they want.
yeah. Well, which is more power to creating your own thing and
Mm.
figuring out how do you get people on your newsletter sign-ups and then own that audience. Like that's always been a big thing, which I wish I again, hindsight, I wish I thought about that 5 years ago or 6 years ago, especially when I started the podcast in, 2017. I never really thought about like owning an audience and building that. If I did, I would have done it totally different. Is what it is. I'm here now. So, no reason to cry over spilled milk, but yeah, I think there's an opportunity to really figure out, okay, how do I use LinkedIn? How do I use X, or how do I use these other platforms to get people uh, to subscribe, and then hopefully from there. I mean, that's the big thing. I at least think about, like, whether it's James Clear, or like, even I love reading Justin Welsh's Saturday Solopreneur. I don't know if you
Yeah,
read that.
I do. Yeah.
He does a good job there. Amanda Getz, I've been reading her. I like her Life's a Game newsletter that
Mm,
comes out on Thursdays. But like, people like that, like, again, good writing, it's kind of like, it's a good thought. Like, I even listened to, Alex Hormozy.
yeah.
Like, he has his, like, Mosey Minute. It's like literally a quick tip. But I'm like, okay, that's thoughtful. I'm like, again, my thing is like, you don't have to hit a home run every time. And if people trust you, like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
And I think the whole point where I'm getting at is, like, if you could figure out that way to, like, trusting people and giving good insight, they're going to share it with others. They're going to start, letting other people know about it. Now, I'm not at that point yet. I've had good responses. Like, people email me like, "Oh, Brian, this was great," or whatever. I haven't seen a ton of people post it like, "Oh, you got to check out Brian's newsletter stuff." That's fine. It'll get there, maybe. But that's kind of the hope, I guess, if I put out good enough content.
Yeah, I would say this year we've started to get into the people sharing for us. So that's also another reason I've been kind of like laying off of LinkedIn,
Mhm.
because what I'm also seeing is like when people share things that they're excited about that I've written, they get more engagement than me sharing the article itself. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should just try to again like focus on the words and over index on things that people want to share versus like me continuing to pour into it. Like once I hit 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, I just stopped caring. Like, the follower count, like, the vanity metric on LinkedIn, as far as I'm concerned, I've reached, right? Like, it's more about conversion now, like, how can I get these 10,000 or so people to, like, be interested in my long form stuff? Um, and I'm just seeing that, like, shareable content is, like, the way to go.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think about that when you're writing? Like, oh, can I, is there this certain section or this nugget? This might be really cool, or
no, just the whole piece, just, like, writing the best piece that I can every time, for
yeah.
sure.
I think that's the right way to go. Again, you're not going to hit home runs all the time,
Yeah,
but if you're doing it, and this is why it's so important to actually write your own stuff. I mean, I know there's a lot of people promoting, like, oh, use AI and write the newsletter in 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, but it goes back to the goal. Like, what's the goal of the newsletter, right? If I'm going to have people, like, want to use me for sales coaching, or for other stuff, right? I want them to be like, oh, this is Brian's voice. This is actually who he is, not some, chat GPT generated content. Um, I don't know. I'm assuming you agree with that as well.
yeah. Yeah, I've been seeing this term called, like, AI slop, which I think is hilarious.
What is it?
AI slop. That's what people have been calling, like, AI writing.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how much I've actually read of AI, like, written content, and I don't know if we'll ever truly know as a society how much of this is, like, AI generated, but so far, the people I've been subscribed to for years. And in terms of when I write, again, like, when I see people in person, because I do try to go to in-person events for creators and business owners and stuff, when people are walking up to me and they're, like, quoting things to me that I've said, I need to be able to recognize what in the world they're talking about.
Yeah.
So, like, that to me is important. Like, if you're not writing it, then you're not gonna be able to, like, really form that connection with people that makes them walk up to you and be like, "Oh, I remember you when you wrote this and I really loved it." You're just gonna be looking at them crazy, and it's like it just diminishes that relationship so quickly. I just don't think it's worth it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's helped there. Like, I mean, I use, like, Hemingway app. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it, but I
Like,
don't use it though.
one, because I'm not I like to write. I would not say I'm a great, like, prose writer, whatever they call it. So, like, a Hemingway app is really helpful, where, like, I'll put my newsletter, like my completed newsletter, and it'll help me think about, like, I should simplify this sentence here, or maybe this is, again, too long of a paragraph there, and split it up. And it just gets me thinking about writing way more. It's almost like an education on the fly.
Yeah.
So I think those tools are helpful. To again, it's like AI in general, I believe, is helpful if you use it in the way that's supportive and not just for you to go put your feet up on the beach and let it, do everything for you. We might get to that point at some point, but
So two things here. On your show, you actually had David Perel on your show.
dude, yeah,
I
awesome dude.
love his podcast, How I Write.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like that to me is something I started listening to once I started writing the newsletter,
yeah,
among other things. And it's just been so helpful, like in terms of helping me think about like how to become a better writer. Um, and then the other thing I wanted to say too about AI. So I do want to caveat that I do use AI in my workflow, just not to write for me. I use it to help me generate outlines sometimes if I'm stuck. I'm like, "Hey, this is what I wanna write about. These are the things I wanna include, but I want it to flow well. Can you give me an outline that I can kind of react to?" That's helpful. Or I'll write something in Notion, and I'll prompt Notion AI, be like, "Hey, what would you add? What would you take away to make this better?" So just prompting it in that way, I think is really helpful too. It's almost like a I don't know, maybe a third party kind of editor kind of taking a look at your work,
sure.
which I think is really cool. So I do use it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, the whole goal is, okay, how do you get more concise maybe? How do you make the format better? It just makes it better for the reader. I'll be the first to admit I was never an A plus English student in school, so I'm not gonna attempt to be like I'm a copywriter and I do this all day every day. I'm not. So I need to learn how to well, the thing is, I think those tools have really helped me actually, because
Mm,
the more I use like a Hemingway app or even Grammarly, think of it how it like auto corrects on your text message and, on an Apple or whatever. It's helped me be thoughtful the next time around about like I'll even think like when I'm writing like a blog post now, I might be like, that's kind of a run-on sentence. Let me split it up. So I'm not using Hemingway app for that. That's just my thinking because I've used it. So again, it's a helpful tool to make me a better writer in the long form or the long run.
yeah, Grammarly it definitely has helped, but Grammarly definitely is not used to me writing, like, in my own voice. Like, there are certain grammatical mistakes that I'm perfectly fine making because they sound more like me.
Yeah,
And again, just AI just isn't there where it can, like, truly understand, like, voice and dialect and those type of things yet.
yeah. Um, well, I want to talk. We talked about growth a little bit. What about metrics? Do you track metrics? Do you think about those?
I am maniacal. I really am trying to be better about it. It's probably better for my health if I'm not as maniacal as I am, but whatever. You don't get better if you don't like 2% crazy about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
2% obsessed, 10% obsessed. So for me, for emails, I try to look at like my stats for the first 12 hours, the first 24 hours, and then the first 72. That's mostly open rate, and click-through rate for those 3 different time frames, just to kind of see, like, how we're trending on an article.
Mm,
And then in terms of maybe 3 days to 1 week out, I'll look at our total opens. So what I've learned just in talking with people that read my newsletter is because it is not a shorter newsletter like a James Clear or a Seth Godin newsletter, they like to take the time to read it. So sometimes like and that's another reason I started posting on Saturdays because some people tell me, "When you post on Thursdays, I wait till Saturday morning when I'm having a slow morning and I'll read it like I'm reading the newspaper with my breakfast." So I'm like, okay, there are some people that like see my newsletter. They know it's a longer read, so they'll save it for later. So
mm.
that's why I kind of try to look at like the first 72 because that kind of tells me, okay, who's gone back and taken a moment to like read this. Um, and I think that's probably true for a lot of the longer newsletters is people may not like the first 1 hour is probably not the best indication. They're probably waiting till they have a minute to really like sit down and engage with whatever it is you're writing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think I'm kind of similar. Mine's a longer form. I mine goes out on Sunday morning. Um, my whole point, again, being around sales is like, all right, they get a tip to walk into the week with to think
Mhm.
about, as they're kind of thinking about their business going into Monday. So I agree with you. I think the open rate is skewed though. So here's something interesting. I just was going down this rabbit hole yesterday, like where Beehive on like click-throughs, like regular click-throughs versus verified. Are you familiar with this? Have you done
Yeah,
that?
I've looked at it. Yeah.
So yeah, because I didn't realize like some of these tools, I don't like HubSpots or whatever type tools, it'll technically count as an open. They'll go into like, verify the email, or they can actually do a click through to verify like the email is correct. So it's actually not quote unquote verified in Beehive. So like I was looking at like this my last post, and I think I had like 15 clicks through it, but like only 4 were verified.
Mm.
So I'm like, does that mean, I'm still figuring out, maybe you have the answer. I'm like, does that mean the other 12 aren't humans? Or does that just mean that you can't verify how the actual click happened? You
You're
know?
asking a great question. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Well, because I was trying to figure out, so this last issue was the first time I used a survey. Have you done surveys?
I have. Not super successfully, but I've done them.
Well, we know what I was thinking. I just been thinking about this in the last week. Like, how do I keep getting better? Right? How do I get better at this newsletter thing and see where I can go? So I said, all right, let me look at some of the newsletters that I read. And actually, I've started reading the Neuron. Are you familiar with this one? It's an
Mm.
AI. It comes out daily. So it's all about AI. Really cool. I can't remember the guys' names but anyways, yeah, people can search the Neuron. Anyways, but like at the bottom of their newsletter, they have like it's just a survey, and it's like basically how are you doing,
Mm.
and they have like 5-star, 3-star, 1-star, and like 5 stars like whatever, and I changed it to my liking, but I was like, so my last newsletter was like 5-star says, whatever, this is awesome, I learned something new. 3 stars like, good, not great, and then 1 star is like, you could do better, Brian, or not your best effort, Brian. So I'm thinking like I had a couple and again, I'm trying not to be like self-conscious about it, but I had like 5 or 6 people like click the 5, and then like I had 2 click the 1. And I'm like, okay, 1, I can't see what people are, but now my thing is, okay, but if they're not verified, how do I know if they're verified clicks or if they're just clicks from like these bots or something? Like it just kind of got me playing my head. I'm like,
I would say the polls are probably verified, because you can also, like, look like, if you're scrolling down, you can look to see, like, what people have clicked, like, the links they've clicked, and if there are polls. So, if the number of verified poll numbers matches with the votes, then they're probably all, like, real people.
oh,
Um,
it is the poll. I mean, I use survey, but yes, the
yeah,
poll. I guess it's a
yeah.
poll is what I'm.
I've done those a couple of times, mostly when I'm trying something new. So when, like, I first did the first audio newsletter, I was just like, "Let me just see how people are feeling, like, do we like it? Do we not like it? You
Mhm,
on it? Like, should I try it again?" Um, and I was also surprised, and this is, like, I don't know if anybody from Beehive is gonna listen to this, but if you are, one thing that I find that's interesting is, like, not only can people vote on a poll, but they can, like, leave a comment after they vote, but you can't respond to that comment
mm,
as, like, the writer. So,
yeah.
like, you have to go back and, like, email that person, I guess, or, like, find them and be like, "Hey, thank you for this comment," or whatever. So, like, that would be nice. Like, if you're gonna start a conversation, like, let me
That's a
keep it
great
going somehow, you
that's a
know?
great yeah, that's a great point, is how do you respond to that? And because it's the same as, like, if someone, I guess, on, like, a Google review made a comment
Yeah.
on the like, the, the owner, they could reply to that comment and say, "Hey," and it shows, like, verified, whatever, "Hey, why tell me more about experience, whatever, let's catch up." Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really dove into the surveys or polls too much. Like I said, literally this first one, but I'm just gonna keep it at the bottom of my newsletter,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna see for a few issues. Obviously, the fact that I had, like, whatever it was, 8, I know I didn't check it in the last day, maybe it's closer to 10 or more now, people to actually click it. That's like, okay, because I changed my whole footer that I had in the prior 18 issues.
Mm.
I changed my footer up. I used to just have like, "Hey, if you want some more sales help, I had a couple links," or, "Hey," like a couple like written stuff, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna learn from others," and I put like a picture, and I put, just a little write up there, and then I had the poll. Seemed to get more response from that. So I guess
Okay.
that's a thing of, keep trying, keep
Oh,
testing, keep practicing.
okay. I might use that more then. I might make a little template for that. We'll see.
Yeah, it was actually super simple to add the poll.
Yeah.
Very simple, and now I can just pull it into anyone. I have, like I said, I haven't done what as far as you've gone, where, like, having multiple templates, and so that's something I gotta figure out is, like, do I just wanna do that on the fly when I create each one? or do I actually want to have templates that are more specific? But again, my content is more, it's not like a written editorial one. So it just, every issue is going to be a little different based on if I'm doing a screenshot or if it's sectioned off or whatever. That kind of changed the look and feel of it anyway.
So talk to me a little bit more about your newsletter. You said you've been writing it for this version of it the last 3 months, which is different from what you've been doing previously. Talk to me about how you kind of settled on this kind of style and premise for the newsletter and, like, what your goals are with the newsletter now.
Yeah, so the blog, like I was mentioning earlier, is kind of just my written, kind of my like, online diary, if you will. This newsletter was sparked around, starting the sales coaching business, really working with like B2B founders. And I said, well, I want to put there's a lot of information I have. And instead of just writing it on LinkedIn and sometimes it goes into a void out there, let me own the audience and let me put it on there. I think there's some really good content I can share. And a lot of things I've learned from coaching different folks, things come up in conversation. I'm like, God, let's turn this into a newsletter. So I committed, so last December 2024, I said, all right, I'm going to start this newsletter and I'm going to write 52 issues in 2025 every week for 2025. And then I'm going to see how I feel at the end of it. So this is kind of the thing I always talk with my whole just get started, is my kind of mission. Like it's my trademark, saying everything. It's my thing is like, you don't have to do it for 5 or 10 years. Like we were talking with the podcast, like, but my thing was, all right, I'm going to do it for 52 weeks because I know for a fact doing it for 5 weeks would do nothing, right? It's so early. So I said, let me give myself the whole year. I'm going to learn how to write. I'm going to learn how do I feel when people react to it? Like, what is the reaction to it, et cetera, right? At the end of the day, I'm going to have so much content to utilize for other things, for courses, for whatever, just for my own kind of liking. So I'm like, it's a win-win. And obviously I'm helping people with this because I get some good responses. I feel like people can really take it. I simplify it. Um, so yeah, I just decided to start. I took, Dickie Bush and Nick Cole.
Yeah.
They had a course. So I took that. I think it was, I guess, end of November and in December, which by the way, like, this is sort of an aside, but like the initial title for the newsletter was going to be like one simple sales skill or something like that. Yeah, kind of clever. But their big thing is like, do you want to be clear or do you want to be clever?
Yeah.
And their thing is be clear when you can be. So I said, okay, I want to talk about skills because I think that's the most important thing for sales is to learn skills that you can build upon. And I'm doing this for founders. So that's where I kind of noodled on a bunch of stuff and I came up with sales skills for founders.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that's as clear as I don't know if you can get much clearer than that. So, anyways, that's what I roll with, and that's the name of the newsletter. So,
Nice. Yeah, I've definitely learned that, clear over clever lesson pretty hard a couple times, yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think we trick ourselves because sometimes we get caught with the clever. And we're like, oh, that's cool, but it's like, what's the consistent thing over and over and over again? That's why I was like, I want people because my thing was like, not that I don't want to help someone that's like a sales rep at a company. Sure, they can get value out of my newsletter, but they're not really who I'm trying to sell my higher ticket items to, right? My sales coaching and what have you, my sales call roasts. Although technically, I guess they could. Um, they would be more of like that's more the exception, not the rule.
Right.
So that's why I said I really want the word founder in the title, and that's kind of how I crafted it. So yeah, like I said, it's been 20 issues, been pretty solid so far. I did one more thing because we haven't talked about like Beehive boosts.
Yeah.
I did try that. I may give it one more chance because I've learned a little bit. So what I've learned is you can get a ton of new subscribers quickly if you really want.
Oh,
Um, Now, are they good subscribers? I'm still figuring that out. Now, Beehive says they have this verification process. We'll see. So I've had right currently I have like 160 subscribers. Yeah, not bad. I think I had 30, yeah, maybe 30 or 35 when I started I think it was the beginning of March. I started to do Beehive boosts. So in the last not even 2 months, I've gotten like 130 new subscribers, verified subscribers.
okay.
so not to I don't know if this will be helpful for anyone. I'd recommend just going and look at this, but like the total number of subscribers that I've gotten from doing Beehive Boost for literally 2 months, and I invested $300 was, I think it ended up being like, it was like 600 subscribers total.
Wow.
But after verification, it only shook out to be about maybe 20% of that, about
Ouch.
100, 120. So, which is good because you only pay for the verified subscribers, which is good. So people can't game, they can't have some email farm of, they have 50,000 emails. I'm sure people try to do that. So I've done that. I tried it. I put $300 in. I did 250 per. So if your newsletter use the boost and you got one verified, you get $2.50 for it. Is how I did it, which is I think average of like what a lot of creators will utilize. I may do it again because what I made the mistake of. We'll see if it's a mistake. But I went to there was like a couple big, you get people that like, oh, hey, Brian, I'd love to
Yeah.
boost your whatever. Well, some of these had like 50, 100,000 subscribers plus, right? Are those the best newsletters? I don't know. It seemed like it kind of fit. So I'm still determining, are those people going to actually stick with the newsletter? Are they going to buy stuff in the future? I'm not sure exactly. My thing is I'm gonna try it again and I'm gonna do another 300, but I'm gonna only pick smaller newsletters
Mhm.
because I want like a newsletter like yours, right? You have, what did you say, 1,200 subscribers or something?
Yeah.
Um, but if they're engaged, although I might only get a few of them, it might only trickle in over time, they might be more qualified.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know, these people that have 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. I don't know if who are those people? Like, what? So that's something I'm kind of figuring out, but I'll probably try it one more time because I don't mind paying a few dollars to try something now. I've kind of changed my viewpoint on that. Again, I said I've learned a lot since the early days of the podcast where I should have invested more dollars into like trying ads or trying to pay for courses or whatever, maybe even trying to pay for help to get it out there more in the world with my the time availability. Now I'm starting to do some of that.
Yeah.
So
No, that's good to hear. I think for 2026, I think paid acquisition is something I'm gonna play around with more. Maybe even towards the end of this year. I know I want to try some paid ads for the podcast, but doing some paid acquisition in Beehive, which makes it really convenient, I think is probably going to be something we definitely want to try. But one thing I really one reason I wanted to wait, I was like, okay, what's going to be the cost benefit of this, right? Like, how much is it realistic for me to make in 1 year off of Beehive ads? Um, and then whatever I make for that for this first year, I'm just going to reinvest into paid acquisition for next year. So that's kind of the goal right now. So we'll see. It's been, I would say, even at 1,200. Like I thought, once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I was really going to be like off to the races and getting a lot of ads and ad requests and stuff. That didn't really happen. So it's still been, I would say, a fairly slow go in terms of like making money from ads. But I'm hoping as we continue to grow and we're growing at a really good pace, like towards the end of the year, we'll be looking really good in terms of ad revenue. So that's something we can start to
yeah.
really reinvest back into paid acquisition.
Are you going out and actively trying to get those sponsors, or you're just using like their ad network?
We are now, but when I first started, I wasn't. I was just using their ad network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something, especially even with 1,200, if you have an engaged audience.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
pretty up there. We're pretty up there, I would say. We're open rate and engagement and everything, so
Yeah.
I feel pretty good
What
about it.
what is your goal with the newsletter? Is it, like I said, for me, it's like, hey, I have these higher ticket, like one-on-one coaching and stuff is kind of the end goal from a business side. Is that similar to you, or do you have other goals? If people were to engage in like buy something from engage in business, what would that be?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually working on our first signature product. It's called Community OS, which is Community Operating System. So it makes sense we're talking about this now. But just as more I learn about it, the more I talk about it, the more I realize like, okay, like I have a unique perspective that I can bring to this, and it still feels relatively early in the marketing space for a conversation around community and building community, both offline and um, in person. So I feel like I could really fill a space there with a signature product about that. So that's definitely coming. I think that's a goal for sure to have the newsletter be a funnel for that product.
Mhm.
Definitely want to do some more high ticket coaching. I've been told by a couple of people that one, I don't talk about that enough. I give away too much for free. And then on the other half, that I would be selling it for too low. So definitely going to try some high ticket coaching. I think that, I've consulted enough, mentored enough for certain amounts of money that I could justify my expertise for high ticket coaching. So
Who would be your ideal client for a coach if you're coaching someone?
Ideal client would be, I would say probably a medium-sized business. So they probably already have an internal marketing team. So
Mhm.
probably a team of in-house creators. They just may not be familiar with how to leverage content to like grow brand affinity, right? So a good example of this would actually be, like for example, the city of Fayetteville, their
Yeah.
tourism board, like relatively decent sized city in North Carolina, one of the biggest places per capita for black owned businesses, right? But their tourism kind of dead on social media. They don't really understand how to use video and how to leverage like their online presence to get people to events and to come visit Fayetteville, to come to baseball games, to come explore the area. So like how do you use this plethora of places where you can go and do all the things, right? And you have people in place to create content that can do that. How do you walk them through how to use that to like get people more engaged online? And then not only get them engaged on social media, but like funnel that social media following into something that you own. Um, I think that would be like probably a pretty decent example of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I went to college in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
No way.
Yeah, all the way from New York, came down to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Quite the experience.
I'm sure.
Quite the experience as a New Yorker. But it was good. It definitely cultured me a little bit. I lived right around like folks that went to or that were at Fort Bragg and stuff. So like again,
Yeah.
a whole culture shock there.
Yeah.
It was
You're
it,
like,
it was good. It was good. It definitely woke me up a little bit.
that's so funny. You're like, can I walk somewhere? Not today. I think I like my life. Actually, it's not a walkable city.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, we can go on for hours here. Maybe we'll do like a part two.
Yeah.
Anything else? What kind of a lasting thought would you share? Maybe about newsletters or how you're thinking about it going forward. Anything at all you kind of end on?
Maybe to not let the fact that you're not naturally a writer, if that even is a thing, to hold you back from starting a newsletter. I think a lot of people think that they have to be this incredibly prolific writer with a lot of followers to start a newsletter that's meaningful and valuable and gets people engaged and responsive. And that's just simply not the case. You can start from anywhere in your writing journey as long as you are willing to commit to it and commit to getting better with each issue and commit to using your voice as authentically as you can to share what it is that you know. And I think that is more important than anything. So many, and like, I tried to start a newsletter twice before I really was able to like get consistent with Please Help Responsibly. And I failed both times because I didn't really think about email like as a destination. Like email is where it happens. Email isn't the gateway to something that's happening, right? Um, and I think once I kind of reframed my mind around what all an email newsletter could be, it just made it so much easier for me to conceptualize how to show up in that space.
Yeah. And you make a good point because it's like I actually had a failed newsletter too. I did a couple of years ago called the Sunday Starter. And it was around it wasn't really just a podcast, but it was around like I just highlight different stuff to help people get started, right? If I kept it going, who knows? But I think I did 19 or 20 or 21 or because I'm top of mind because I'm at that point with this current
Mhm.
newsletter.
Yeah.
And but like this one, I'm really energized about just because like one sales, I've had that as a background for a lot of years. So I know I can help people in that regard. Not that I can't just get started because that's a huge mission, but I felt like for whatever reason, it just wasn't the right fit the way I was writing it. So maybe I'll get back to it. Maybe I'll just keep writing myself, the blogs and stuff. So I agree with you. I think it's the whole just get started mentality. Like you only learn when you actually go through it. So even if you try newsletter and you're like after 10 or 15, you're like, I don't really like this. Okay, then stop, do something else, or stop and pivot and say, maybe this format's not the best. Maybe I want to go more of a James Clear, shorter style or something. Like figure it out. Um, but I think it goes back to like, what's that mission? Like, where are you trying to go with it? And if you have like, okay, I want to build a following offline, I want to be able to engage with this type of person, et cetera, then a newsletter is a great spot. You just might not have found the right formula. Right? I think that's so important. Is like just keep going and then move and navigate along the path as accordingly. But you don't have to have it made up perfectly right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think we're also in a good space where, like, there's so many newsletters you can take inspiration from, right? Like, you don't have to think about, like, "Oh, I'm starting this from scratch. What do I do?" It's like, there's plenty of examples you can look to.
Well, and do I think go back, you said this earlier, is like do it your way. Like, I was talking to a guy I caught up with, a few months ago now, and he does, like, short form, like, social media videos, and he was thinking about starting a newsletter, and I said, "Why don't you do it?" I was like, "Here's an idea. Your call if you wanna take it." But I said, "If this is what you do as a living and you're really good about these short form videos, why doesn't that become the newsletter?" You literally have it, it's like a 30 to minute second, 30-second to minute read, or you actually do it as a video newsletter where you do it in that form as the short, sort of, and that's the newsletter. So when people open it up, they hit play, maybe it takes them to YouTube or it's embedded in there, and that's your newsletter. It doesn't have to be written, it doesn't have to be long. Um, so anyways, I think that's like be creative about it and tie it around your brand or what you're trying to accomplish, you know?
Yeah. One thing that, again, we could sit here all day, and maybe a good for part 2 is, like, thinking about email as a visual medium. Like, I've been trying to talk to people about, like, me recording myself reading my newsletter and doing the audio newsletter, and you would think I taught them how to, like, start a fire or something. They're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I can do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want, like,
yeah.
who cares?" They're like, "It doesn't affect open rates." I'm like, "Who cares about open rates? Just freaking
Yeah,
just
just do
do
it.
it, just try it," you know? And, like, so when you're saying, like, do a video newsletter, there's somebody's gonna be like, "I can do that?" It's like, "Why not?" Like, like, have
I
fun.
I thought about that actually when I started this one, and I've tested a little bit, but I was gonna do like I was gonna record it, like, using Loom, and literally just walk through the newsletter and kind of just, again, highlight my thoughts and give some insight about what I'm talking about and put that at the top and say, "Here's the video if you wanna listen to me rant for 10 minutes, or you can read it below." I haven't gone that far to do it. I don't know if I will or not, but again, it's just one of those things like you got to feel out what's best for you. And by the way, it doesn't mean I can't next issue be like, maybe I'll go back to that idea.
Yeah.
To your point, maybe you try it every once in a while. Hey, this is the video daily double here. Like I'm gonna do that and see what happens. Like you do the audio. So I think that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Formats are meant to be broken, they're just templates, that's all.
Yeah,
Have multiple, who cares?
yeah. That's a good way to end this. Formats are meant to be broken. I'm writing that down. Angela, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is
Thanks for
good.
chatting about this. We'll definitely do a part 2. We'll talk maybe more podcasts and maybe an update on the newsletters where they're at, maybe later this year. So
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
awesome. You want to shout out? So please hustle responsibly.
Yes, please hustle responsibly and Melanin MVP, they are both on Beehive. Um, I'll give you guys the links in the description.
Perfect. Yep. And
Yeah, what about
I'll
you?
do the same for and your LinkedIn, obviously, where you're
Yes,
spending not as much time.
not as much, but I'm there if you wanna hit me up.
Cool.
Yeah.